So I'm going to be talking about my experience on VR, and the three VR projects I'm about to talk about are CCP's Oculus launch title Valkyrie. We did an experience for Save, which is a music venue in Gateshead in the Northeast, that was cross-platform on VR and on tablet. And most recently, I've been working with the guys at Gorilla Cambridge on Rig's Mechanized Combat League, which is a launch title for the Morpheus platform. And what I've learned working on these is that there are some very unique challenges and some very unique opportunities that VR offers. We all know about it in terms of content, but also for UI design. As an industry, we've become very good at telling stories through the medium of a kind of window into a world, and that world can be amazingly well realized, but you're still viewing it through this very narrow window. And UI's role primarily has been kind of a layer between you and the game world that makes your interaction with the game world work. But in VR, it's very different. It's attempting to try and approach designing UI for VR in the same way that we've been doing it in the industry for a really long time. We're very good at that. And you might end up with something like this. Credit where credit's due, this is a fan mod that makes Left 4 Dead playable in VR. But this is this in VR. Good VR UI should make you feel powerful. It gives you the information that you need to make decisions that are enacted out in the game world. Good VR should make you feel like Tom Cruise in Minority Report with all this information at your fingertips. It should not make you feel like you're in front of a window into the game world. In VR, you're physically there in the world. And good VR UI is integral to a good VR experience. It has to not get in the way. It has to help with immersion rather than hinder. So what are some of the limitations? What are some of the common mistakes, common pitfalls that we should consider when designing for VR? One of the biggest ones, one of the biggest misconceptions is about visual acuity, and that is how well can I see what's on the screen. In VR, we're not just looking at a screen of equal density. In a 2D screen, it takes up a very small field of your view, but it is equally dense and it is equally sharp in all areas. And HMDs like the Oculus, the Morpheus expand out that field of view massively, encompassing your entire field of vision. In fact, it goes even further when you start to introduce head tracking to encompass literally everything that you can see around you. But the way that these work is to take a flat screen and to distort the pixels to fill your vision. And you end up with areas kind of to the edges where traditionally we've put UI content in the past that aren't as crisp as they are in the center. Compound that with the fact that the way that our eyes work is that the best recognition we have is in a very small cone right in the middle. About 5 to 30 degrees either side is where you can distinguish letters, symbols. Towards the edges of your vision, you even lose the ability to distinguish between colors. And we don't notice that in everyday life because our eyes flit around all the time, and we build a mental picture of what we're seeing. But in VR, apart from the photo, which I've not had a chance to have a go at, there is no eye tracking. You're looking forwards, you're head tracking, but there's no kind of change in visual acuity towards the edges. So if you were to implement something like this, where you have UI around the edges of the screen, say like on a helmet, we're all very inspired by things like the Iron Man HUD, it wouldn't be as clear as you imagine, both because the pixel density isn't as good around the edges, and because you're not as good at seeing in those areas. It's much better for VR to have things that are in the real world, things that you can reference. So to take this example from Alien Isolation, to have something that you can refer down to. It doesn't take up as much space, and it's much crisper because you can bring it into your good vision, that center of vision that's really powerful. And another kind of limitation of the current generation of HMDs is their resolution. If we go back to that idea of looking at a traditional screen, it takes up a very small amount of my field of view, but it's very dense, very heavily populated with pixels. And HMDs at the moment aren't. They're getting better all the time. There's talk of resolution in the Oculus Consumer Vision 1 being as high as 2160, 1200, but even so, that's only about 1080 to 1200 per eye, which is still less than HD per eye. And then, of course, we also have to factor in physical fatigue. This is a real thing. Like the HMD weighs more than your head, put it that way. So if you're asking your player to look around a lot to complete common tasks, it's going to cause some discomfort in doing this sort of thing. And briefly, I want to touch on the barphagenic zone, the wonderful 90s term that was coined to describe motion sickness. UI can be as responsible for motion sickness as any other kind of VR content. We have to be mindful about that. So what are some of the unique advantages that VR offers us that we can use to create good VR UI? Well, something that we don't get in a lot of other mediums is a real sense of depth. Apart from a very small base of people that are playing AAA games on stereoscopic TVs, most games do not include stereoscopic depth. And that's something that we can use to as another dimension into which we can present UI. So for instance, in Valkyrie, we've got these indicators on the side here, and at the top, these are 3D objects, and we're very good at sensing depth and how far on this something is, including, of course, the usual things of size and color and animation. In a kind of space from where I'm standing to about 20 meters out, I'm very accurately able to determine how far away something is. So VR offers us that to use as a tool for adding information. And most of the HMDs are also exploring binaural audio. The idea that what stereoscopic vision is for the eyes, binaural audio is for the ears. We have 2 ears, and by feeding them different inputs, we can get a real sense of where a sound is positioned. And this can be used, of course, to communicate information about gameplay as well, to support the UI. And of course, there are also new inputs. VR at the moment has been done a lot with traditional controllers. The Oculus Rift is shipping with the Xbox One controller as standard. But there are also these explorations of devices that give you more presence in the game, hand presence. And with that, new ways of controlling things, we also have to cater for new ways of giving people information about what they're doing. So you've got things like the Leap Motion, and this is the Hovercast demo, where the input informs the design of the UI and the way that information is presented to the player. So aside from those advantages and disadvantages of VR itself, what other advice can I give you from my experience on how to design good VR UI? Well, the first one is to consider diegesis. Diegesis is this idea that elements exist in the fictional world. Diegetic elements exist in the fictional world. They're there not only for your benefit, but they can also be seen and heard by the characters that inhabit that world. So, not like this is not diegetic UI, but it is very, very common, very pervasive trend in game design to have additional information that is only for the benefit of the player. Wolfenstein popularized the FPS genre in 1992 and gave rise to the kind of need for HUD, or the trend for HUD in pretty much every FPS game since. And it's, it's still being used in very many different forms. Non-diegetic UI is the trend throughout games. It's very uncommon that you'll find games that have a truly diegetic UI. But a couple of examples that do. So this is a game called Metro 2033. And the game went to great lengths to kind of ground all of the information that you needed to play the game in the setting of the game world. Everything is on a prop, everything is done with the player's hands, and this is not a game that was ever designed for VR. This is in all intents and purposes, a traditional game. But it adds a sense of realism, it adds a sense of immersion that in VR we want to maintain, we want to create this. And so diegetic UI really, I feel, helps cement the player in their experience, in their VR experience. It's important to note that diegesis is not the same as believability. To take another example of a really great diegetic UI from a non-VR game is something like Dead Space. Now, this entire interface exists in the game world. My character, Isaac, can see this. It's the tool which he does his everyday duties with, and it just happens that it's also the tool that we interact with the game with. But the believability of this is arguable, but it is diegetic in that it fits in the world, in the set rules that this world has created. And then of course you've got things like Darknet, which is a VR game, but it's taking in this world of kind of hacking, viruses, that kind of 90s vision of VR where you're in the mainframe. And so the UI is diegetic in that it obeys the rules of that world, but it's not realistic in any way. My biggest piece of advice would be that you have to start your work on UI for VR really early on in the design process. Not just when you're starting to make the game, but actually even before you've started to make anything. Think about how the player is going to interact with what you're creating. And to do that, for the games that I've worked on, we've referenced other disciplines quite heavily. So if we take the example of Valkyrie, for instance, we did a lot of research into analogous real-world problems. In Valkyrie, you're flying through space, and so we looked a lot at cockpit designs from the military and from NASA as well. And they have done an incredible amount of research on usability in very extreme circumstances. And so there was a lot that we could learn from that. If your VR experience is analogous to a real-world activity, even loosely, definitely have a look at how problems of usability are being addressed in that field. One of the things that I love about this image is this idea of the knee path. So there's limited room to actually put a piece of paper and write stuff down, and they've got these like whiteboards on their knees that they can add information on. And this gave us some great ideas about putting information on the player's avatar, or about the importance and the position of stuff. So the clock is not as important as the map, and it's further away from the kind of central field that you're going to be using more often. I mentioned that resolution and visual acuity were slightly problematic, and so for the products that we've worked on, we tend to favor icons over text for a number of reasons. Text is great at explaining precisely what something does, but if you really want to find something quickly, it's a lot faster to just recognize it by an icon. A great example of that in VR would be this experience called Tilt Brush, where it's kind of painting out but in 3D space. And you can see here that all of the tools are represented by icons for quick reference, but there's also an element of text to kind of support that, that's contextual. You can quickly kind of just see, even though it's slightly lower resolution than before, what those things are, which is quite I like. And then there's the use of animation. I talked about the different zones of vision, what they're good and not so good at. Peripheral vision, at the very edges of your field of view, is very, very sensitive to animation. You might not be able to see what something is, but you can sense that it is moving. And so we can use that to kind of draw people's attention to different parts of their current field of view and bring them into the new field of view. So this is from a Siemens trade show experience by the masters of Pi and Territory Studios. And this animated line kind of leads people from one part of the experience to another. And you can kind of see it proceeding out of the corner of your eye, and so you know to follow that. And we use this a lot in Valkyrie to kind of let you know when pieces of information that live in the cockpit are changing. There'll be a piece of animation in the very corner of your vision that kind of leads your attention down to find a more detailed piece of information somewhere else. And making UI contextual is another thing that can really help to kind of free up some of the field of view for other things, like seeing how to move up your window. Having UI that only appears when you need it is something that we can do with head tracking, because we know precisely where it's looking. Again, to go back to the Siemens trade show experience, this is using head tracking to bring up various different pieces of information depending on what the user is looking at. Another thing that I would suggest is that you challenge players to be more aware of the environment around them. In VR, you're very immersed in the gaming world, and there are some things that are communicated more effectively than via a piece of UI. As a UI designer, campaigns would say that, but it's true. And I've actually been very involved in helping to decide what pieces of information don't need UI and where else they could live in the world. So, for example, a lot of the Forza games, this one being Forza Horizon 2, have a no HUD, no assist mode. You're literally challenged to drive, as you would in real life, with no indicators of who's around you or where to go next, and to follow the road signs and things. And this is a non-VR game. It works even better in VR, where we have a much greater situational awareness. I'm not saying don't do any UI, because VR is it's important to test often. It's important to test early, but it's really important to test with VR humans, people that have not experienced VR before. And one of the main reasons is that as developers we build up a tolerance to VR. The more hours you clock, the less susceptible you are to motion sickness, to uncanny valley issues, anything that we just become very accepting of things. Testing with people that have not experienced VR before can really open your eyes to lots of different things. We had a lot of preconceptions about what would work really well, and when we tested it, we were very surprised that some of the things we didn't think were very good worked really well. So not only test the stuff that you think is good, but also use it as validation for dismissing ideas. It's important to continually refine your design. Again, I mentioned that we were quite surprised when we started to test stuff, that some of the preconceptions that we had were just not true. Things that we thought wouldn't work did. And so then it's trying to find out, okay, how do we refine that? I didn't think this was a good idea, but it's working really well. How can I iterate on that? Refine and refine and keep testing until you have something that's really pleasing everyone. So to summarize, VR UI is very different from traditional UI in terms of its location, in terms of its function, in terms of the information that you choose to show through your UI and choose not to show. And that requires new ways of approaching, informing and empowering your users. VR UI works best when it's been considered as an integral part, even before you started creating your experience, as an integral part of that experience. And good VR UI makes use of the advantages that VR offers, so things like head tracking, things like that sense of depth, plus being sensitive to the things that make users uncomfortable and sick. And successful VR UI blurs the lines of responsibility between the traditional disciplines of what has traditionally been preserved with UI designers and game designers in terms of what is the best possible method of giving the players the information that they need to do the tasks of the game. And that's okay, that's actually really important part of the work that we've done. It's as much about designing the UI as it is about trusting users to find information from other places that isn't traditionally UI. Thank you for listening. I kind of rattled through that. Hopefully that's a good thing, and we'll give you more time for Q&A. I hope some of you have some questions. Yeah, I was all over the place. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. How much have you done with VR UI that is rotational based, that like relies on someone's understanding of where their hands are and stuff, and manipulating two-hand interfaces? And do you have any advice on that one?
I haven't actually, to be truthful, I haven't done anything with hand presence yet. Valkyrie uses a standard controller as a seated VR experience, as is Riggs, and the PlayStation experience is, again, a seated VR experience with control. So I haven't done anything with rotational understanding and encoding information in that. Sorry. Yes, you like that? Or, yeah, sure.
I'm just wondering, when you are concepting VR UI, how have you gone about that? Have you had methods to be able to test it in the headset itself, or have you done some things on the screen?
Yeah, so there's a whole range of different methods that we use for kind of prototyping stuff out. On Valkyrie, for instance, before we committed to building anything in the engine, we were doing stuff on the like glass whiteboards where we would draw like what we thought the information would be, and then sit in a chair and be like, okay, is this right for my cockpit? Through to like doing animatics in After Effects, where we were kind of panning the camera around and thinking about the different zones that we could put information in. In terms of building a game, I think that the key is just to build really quickly and to test an idea with the bare minimum you can, because you'll find that we certainly found that some of the things that we thought were going to work very well didn't, and it was good that we hadn't invested a lot of time in building a really polished version, because we ended up going with something else. I think there was a question at the back.
Well, two questions.
Okay.
Have you done anything sort of similar to like health on FPS?
Yeah, so in Valkyrie you have, like, your ship has health, and when that's depleted you explode and freeze and see that, and it's really creepy.
Yeah, but in Valkyrie you're actually sitting in a cockpit, so you're not moving. So when you move you see kind of sort of around the cockpit, but as a human person kind of walking around. When you look around you see the environment.
No, so in Valkyrie you're in a cockpit, and there's a physical location in the cockpit where you're informed of the kind of structural integrity of your ship, which is essentially your health and your shield. And in Riggs you are in a mech rig, and so that has an associated health. You as the player are not the kind of target of health depletion. And
I'm just wondering, in terms of user testing with Valkyrie, did that go through quite a few iterations, or? Because
Valkyrie is a seated experience, the player isn't supposed to move around a lot, and so the body, the avatar, is quite immersive, because it kind of matches up to what you expect. When you look down and you see a seated body, and that feels very good. It gives you a great sense of presence. In terms of kind of in creating that presence in the Play Sage experience, which is it's very different. You don't have an avatar at all, but then the world is stylized in a very different way. So I don't think that you expect, because it's not a realistic interpretation of the world, I don't think you expect a realistic representation of yourself in that space. Anyone? Yeah, tell me.
Do you have any way to figure out
just text in terms of like, can I distinguish the individual characters? Can I read, a paragraph, a sentence? Depending on how long your sentences are and how tall your paragraphs are, you may have to have the user moving their head around the paragraph text because it has to be that large in order for you to tell the individual character apart. And so, what was minimizing text as much as possible is my kind of piece of advice. I don't feel like that answered your question. Your question was specifically about how far away should text be.
So in the case of the cockpits, for example, where you've got something that the user has to read, so there's some read out numbers or whatever might be on the actual cockpit. Obviously, you could just put crazy high resolution text there, that's not very efficient. But given that you've got, the parameters of the screen in terms of its resolution, display type resolution, and things like that, the approximate distances, have you got methods of figuring out what an optimal resolution of where you are to that?
No, I think that for Valkyrie, we went with the highest possible kind of fidelity that we could get away with, because you've also got the possibility that users are actually going to go close. Now that we've got positional tracking, we find that users like to pull in and look at things in more detail. And so you can't really account, if you account for the kind of distance that it would normally sit at, people can break that by pulling in. So in order to kind of create and maintain immersion in that experience, the cockpit is incredibly high resolution because it's the part of the world that you can get the closest to and to really inspect in detail. And that's true of the UI as well. We use very high resolution textures for the icons and for text.
We also looked at, say, for example, in games like Valkyrie, where you get a lot of messages coming over the radio, the implications of when they're localized into lots of different languages, you might need to subtitle it within a virtual space.
I haven't looked into subtitling in virtual space yet, but I know that there's a lot of talk about where does that live? How does that work in the cockpit? Because you always want subtitles to be relative to where the player is looking. You don't want them to have to drag their attention away from what they're doing to find out what they're hearing. I would be really fascinated to see who comes up with a good solution for that. We have thought about things like, just drawing a kind of box that sits kind of between, equidistant between you and the cockpit, but then you've got problems of if you look down, does it intersect with your body? It's messy. Any more questions? Yeah, right in the back there.
Hello, I played Valkyrie, I think, every time I had the opportunity to play it, and I love it. I mean, from early stage up to the later stage, and I've seen a lot of changes in the UI.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how many there were, because to know how many iterations you had to say this to find the UI iteration to be interesting for me to know.
Sure, so from the original kind of EVI, which was the prototype that kind of sparked the whole idea for Valkyrie, through to the yellow version that I showed where the UI is realized as 3D objects. There have been, I would say, 3 or 4 major iterations of that UI. But to get to each of those major iterations, every single element of that UI has been iterated on at least 10 to 15 times per cycle. We're always looking for not only the best way to display information, but there's just so many different ways that you can encode information. So for instance, you may have played the FanFest 2014 demo where we had a compass above the user's head. And that was one of our early methods of giving players awareness of who's behind them, who's around them. Because out of the cockpit, you don't necessarily see where the other ships are in relation to you. For a while, we moved away to kind of almost no situational awareness about who's around you. And that goes back to my point about challenging the player to be aware of their surroundings. If in Valkyrie another ship manages to get behind you without you noticing, it's kind of their prerogative to shoot you down. And because everybody's in the same boat, everybody's more aware of I have to be more vigilant for people that get behind me. We're seeing now a mini map appear in the middle that's more to facilitate relation to your understanding of where you are in the level than it is understanding where you are relative to other smaller things like the initiatives. Any more questions? Sorry, it's short and sweet, but thank you everybody for coming.